Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for this session. We are very, very sorry that the session has begun late due to unavoidable circumstances. We will try to work within the time that we have been allocated. My name is Brenda Zedaradido from TRT World. I'll be taking you through this session that we'll be having. It's about Sahel, the future of the regional integration. Just to hear the voices of the panelists, I'd like them to introduce themselves.
My name is Abdoulaye Diop. I'm the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of Mali.
Mon nom c'est Bakaria Oussangare, ministre des Affaires étrangères.
My name is Sangare. I'm also Minister of Foreign Affairs of Niger.
Karamoko Jean-Marie Traoré.
Karamoko Jean-Marie Traoré,
la coopération régionale
Minister of Foreign Affairs of Burkina Faso.
Let's get straight into it. Gentlemen, thank you for your time and for agreeing to attend the Antalya Diplomacy Forum 2025, where we interact and get to build the future for Africa. I'll begin the question by asking the Foreign Affairs Minister of the Republic of Mali, how do regional actors interpret and position themselves within the evolving Sahel landscape?
Merci infiniment.
Thank you very much. For us, the main concern is that the actors of the Sahel States Confederation have unified themselves to counter existential threats, the terrorism threat, and a potential military attack. We also want to have a regional integration among those states to encourage economic development, which is, of course, a foundation for welfare. Of course, our countries remain open to work with other countries for this regional economic integration. And, of course, the work we'll do will go beyond the limits of the Sahel region, but, of course, we need to work among others first, among our peoples, and then with others. With the Western Africa, of course, we have a common destiny.
Thank you. Don't worry if you see like I'm delaying to respond. It's because I need to wait for the interpretation to be done. The next question will go to Niger. Sorry for that. Given the shifting regional order, does ECOWAS require structural changes in its regional cooperation perspective? I know the country that you represent is no longer a member of ECOWAS, but kindly respond to the question.
Merci.
Thank you very much. As you have said, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso are no longer members of the ECOWAS. We are not part of it anymore because we became aware that instead of economically integrating, this organization does other things. And it no longer serves its purposes with which it was founded. And there are parasites, and it's being manipulated, and it does not respond to its original goals. So now, what should be done to improve the cooperation within ECOWAS? I think it's the ECOWAS member countries that should respond to this questioning, because we have have no longer any comments to convey to ECOWAS. If countries that remain members of ECOWAS, if they consider that the current conditions are still acceptable, and if they still consider that ECOWAS is an economic integration body, then they should, of course, do their best to develop that organization. We did not leave ECOWAS to experience something by ourselves, but we are trying another integration system. There are similarities. We are political, environmental commonalities within our countries, and we are also trying to be autonomous, which is also very different from what ECOWAS is trying to achieve. You cannot be independent or protect your sovereignty if other countries finance you. This is important for me. I think this question needs to be asked to the ECOWAS organization. Thank you.
I know the question needs to be asked to the ECOWAS members of the ECOWAS, but just based from what you're saying, the reason as to why the 3 Sahel countries left countries in the Sahel region, we're talking about Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, it's because they felt like ECOWAS was not living up to its mandate. So the question would be, do you expect or do you think, still goes back to Niger, a follow-up question, do you think, or rather, do you expect other members of ECOWAS to join the Alliance of Sahel States? And how will the Alliance of Sahel States address concerns of the people of the 3 countries?
La question, c'est toujours à moi, c'est ça?
Is it for me?
Quand on a créé l'AES, on l'a créé à
So when we created our alliance or confederation, I'm not going to come back to the reasons because I think those who are interested in the topic have a grasp of this history. So other countries might be interested in joining our organization. Yes, we haven't created our organization to limit it to 3 countries, of course. And if the model that we are trying to promote appeals to other countries, if they find it charming and if they find it worth joining that confederation, then of course we don't see any obstacle to that. But of course it comes to the agreement between those 3 countries that there will be certain conditions that we will define. We do know that countries that are trying to make our territories unstable, we know that they can try to infiltrate us. We know that other countries will try to integrate, to join our organization. So there will be 3rd countries that will try to undermine this organization. So we'll be very careful towards that situation. We'll be extremely careful. Of course, other countries may become members of our confederation, but with certain conditions. We do not fear African countries, but African regime in general terms. African countries agree with what we do. No African people will be against the sovereignty fight that we are trying to have.
All right, thank you. To Burkina Faso, so what is the anticipated trajectory of the integration process? And this is within the Sahel region, and what factors are likely to shape its future development? And answering this question, think about the latest developments that we've been seeing in the region.
Bien, merci. Je pense que c'est important
Thank you very much. I think it's
d'apporter
important
un certain nombre de précisions sur ce qui a
share
été à la
certain
base de cette nouvelle
details
structuration, de ce nouvel espace.
which were at the foundation
Les
of
trois
this
pays
new
ont
confederation.
expérimenté
These three countries
un
have
espace de solidarité
experienced a
qui n'a pas
solidarity
été au
space which
Le fait de
unfortunately
rester
wasn't
dans une
able
situation
to
où
satisfy
vous saviez
our
ce que vous voulez.
expectations. We
C'est-à-dire,
knew what we
plus de
wanted
solidarité,
when we were
plus de
members of ECOWAS.
coopération,
More
plus de soutien
solidarity,
mutuel.
more cooperation, more
Et que
mutual
cela n'arrive pas, ça
respect.
vous amène à
Of course,
mesurer
when
davantage
this is
vos
not
besoins. Et je crois que
satisfied,
l'avantage
then
que
you
nos trois
need
pays
to
ont eu
have
dans
an
une
evaluation.
circonstance
So these three
naturellement triste, qui
countries,
est celle
in
de
unfortunately
l'insécurité, du
sad
terrorisme,
circumstances,
les a amenés
insecurity,
à prendre
terrorism,
conscience
were
de leurs réels
invited to be aware of
d'évaluer
their
leurs
real
faiblesses,
needs
mais aussi
in order to take
d'évaluer
into
leur
account
propre
their
capacité en termes de
weaknesses, but
solidarité.
also to be aware
Et
of
c'est ce
their
qui porte
potential, of their
la
capacity,
vision
which
confédérale aujourd'hui, qui est
defines the
construite
vision that we
sur
have.
des décisions
We have built
courageuses
our
de dire,
confederation on
nous pouvons
courageous
restructurer notre
decisions.
espace
We can
en
restructure
partant
our
d'abord de nos propres
space,
capacités.
our region,
La
and
notion
rely on
endogène
our
aujourd'hui
proper
prend plus
capacities,
d'espace
on our own capacities.
parce que on s'est rendu compte que
Because
cette
we
démarche qui était
became
beaucoup
aware
plus
that
portée par l'extraversion n'a pas tenu ses promesses.
ECOWAS
Et
couldn't
l'extraversion n'était pas seulement au niveau
live
économique.
up to its
Elle est à tous les
promises,
niveaux.
economic
Et
promises or
aujourd'hui, au niveau
other
de l'espace confédéral,
promises.
il s'agit
So
en
in our
réalité
confederation,
de revoir la mosaïque,
we
de la
are
consolider
now
pour donner une nouvelle
renewing or
base
revisioning the mosaic,
à ce nouvel espace.
this
Je
new,
pense que
and we're
les
trying to give a
principes
new
qui
structure
guident
to
ces
this
décisions,
region.
c'est un,
And our philosophy
de
is
faire en
based
sorte
on,
que
first
les
of all,
acquis positifs que nous avions
we
déjà
are trying to
puissent être
base ourselves to
sauvegardés,
the
mais de
positive
travailler à les consolider dans
acquisitions
l'espace
that
confédéral pour
we've
ouvrir de nouvelles
already
perspectives,
obtained,
tant
and
au
this
point
will
de
be
vue
the
économique,
foundation. Of
social,
course, we'll try to develop
sécuritaire,
them
tout ce
in
qui
social,
porte
economic,
la dynamique,
military,
au niveau
security
de
fields
l'Afrique occidentale.
for
Deuxièmement,
Western Africa.
de créer de
Second,
nouvelles conditions, les
we'll
conditions
try
réelles
to
de
create
relance
new conditions
l'économie
for
sous-régionale.
economic
De créer de
relaunch
réels
of
marchés
this
à l'interne,
sub-region.
ce qui a
We'll try
fortement
to create
manqué. Nous avions un espace
good
qui avait
conditions
une
to have an
vocation qui
economic
était claire,
market.
une mission bien définie,
We have
mais qui
a
a
very-
But allow
manqué
me,
son
allow me to cut you short. When you're talking about creating economic conditions for other people, yet we are seeing that ECOWAS gave you the free will of continuing with the free trade agreement. How will that happen? At the same time, the three countries have imposed a 0.5% duty on imports.
Nous ne sommes pas dans une démarche qui consiste à prendre le contre-pied de
We are not
ce qui est
trying
en train
to
d'arriver,
do
mais plutôt à
everything
reconstruire la
in terms
base.
of countering
Ça a fortement manqué.
what is being
Reconstruire la
done.
base, ça veut
But
dire
we're
quoi?
trying to build
Créer
a
les
foundation
conditions pour que
that
nous
we
puissions
lacked.
nous-mêmes
We're
partir
trying
d'une
to
économie
have
endogène
conditions
qui
to
va
have
se structurer
economies
au fur et à
that will
mesure
be
pour
progressively
embrasser le reste de
built.
l'espace. Je crois que c'est de ça qu'il
And
s'agit.
I think it's
Et
mostly about that.
l'avantage de la consolidation à notre niveau
And
part d'abord d'un
the
problème,
advantage
celui
of
de la question
consolidation
sécuritaire,
is originally
nous a
based
amené
on the
à construire un
security
espace
concerns. We
qui
were
redessine les cartes dans la
we
représentation
had
même
to redefine a
la
region
tête du Sahel. La
according
nouvelle
to
cartographie
the maps
envisageait
that
un espace
people
unique.
from Sahel
Aujourd'hui,
will
l'espace
have in their
confédéral
minds.
est un espace
Because first
d'opération
of all, this
unique dans le
confederation
domaine
is a
sécuritaire.
unique
Ça amène les
security
citoyens à avoir
space.
un nouveau regard.
And we,
et qui va
as
se transposer
citizens of
sur
that
les
region,
rapports
we
que
can
nous
have a
avons
new
entre nous,
perspective.
et aussi
And this will
dans le
allow
cadre
us
de
to
nos échanges.
reconsider
Donc, carrément une
our
nouvelle dynamique de
relations.
solidarité
So
qui est
there's
en
a
cours.
new solidarity dynamism that is now ongoing.
All right, thank you. I wanted to ask the Foreign Affairs Minister for Mali the next question, but it looks like you also want to give a response to what he said, to my question.
Yes. Non, deux choses. D'abord, vous avez dit que la CEDEAO
things. Yes,
a
you've
maintenu
said that
la libre
ECOWAS
circulation
has
avec nos pays,
maintained
mais il faut d'abord se rappeler qu'au mois de
free
décembre, c'est
circulation
le
of
collège des
goods,
chefs
but
d'État de la
in
Confédération des
December,
États du Sahel qui a fait une
the
déclaration officielle
Confederation
indiquant que nous
of Sahel
maintenons
countries
tous les avantages de la
has
libre circulation aux
had an
ressortissants de
official
la CEDEAO qui
declaration,
vivent dans nos pays.
and we have
Donc
also
cette ouverture-là,
announced
nous
that
l'avons fait parce
free
que nous
trade
sommes
will
dans un
be
esprit
maintained
panafricaniste
with
et nous
ECOWAS,
pensons
because
que
we
nous ne
have
devons pas
a
diviser
pan-African vision.
nos peuples.
We do not want to
Vous avez parlé
divide
aussi de la
our
question du
peoples.
prélèvement confédéral
And,
de 0,5% qui n'a
yes,
pas été
the
sur les
0.5
importations, qui n'a pas été
duty
établi pour
that
faire
was
créer une
applied
barrière. Mais ces
wasn't
0,5% existait déjà
conceived
quand on était dans le
to
cadre de la
create an
CEDEAO. Ce
obstacle,
prélèvement
but this was
communautaire de la
already
CEDEAO aidait à financer
pre-existent
l'organisation.
when
Donc c'est
ECOWAS
ce même
was
prélèvement que
created,
nous avons
and this
retenu,
is
mais qui
used
sera maintenant
to
dirigé pour
finance the
financer
organization.
plutôt
But
les activités de la
currently,
Confédération.
we
Donc
will
ce n'est pas
use
une taxe nouvelle,
these
absolument pas.
taxes to finance activities of the Confederation. This is not a new tax.
Thank you for that, but I'd still direct the next question to Mali. So the capacity building, let's talk about the capacity building efforts that have been central to supporting Sahel states in their fight against terrorism, because that is a major, major issue. What strategies could enhance their effectiveness in addressing the region's evolving security threats?
À mon avis, la question de renforcement
I
des
think
capacités est une
the
donnée
fact
importante.
of reinforcing
Mais il faut
capacities is an
d'abord,
important
la situer,
data, but first of
dans le
all,
fait que nos
it
pays
has
ont
to be
décidé en matière
situated in the
sécuritaire
fact
d'établir un nouveau paradigme.
that
Ce
our
paradigme, c'est quoi?
countries
C'est de dire que
decided
la
for a new
sécurité
paradigm,
des Sahéliens,
which
des
means
Burkinabés, des Nigériens et des
that
Maliens
our
doit être
security
mis
in
entre les
our
mains,
region
mise
should
entre
be
les
in
mains,
hands
de nos propres citoyens,
of our
de nos forces de
own
défense et de
citizens,
sécurité
of our
et de nos autorités.
security
Et
and
que cela
defense
exige de
forces,
nous
and
une
in the hands of
responsabilité
our
particulière
authorities.
de
And this is
dessiner
for
notre
us
propre doctrine et nos
a
objectifs
special
militaires, de
responsibility
déployer nos
to
moyens militaires
deploy
en
our
conséquence, et de
military
pouvoir agir
means
par rapport à
and
ça.
then
Et quand
to
nous
start
avons
to
dit ça
act. So
maintenant
when
dans
we
les
said
rapports
that
avec
in
l'extérieur,
the report
sur le
with
plan financier, nous en tirons
the
aussi les conséquences
observers,
parce que des pays
and
comme le
we
Burkina,
see
le
that
Mali et le
countries
Niger
like
dépensent aujourd'hui près de
ours
25%
are
de leur budget national pour assurer la sécurité. C'est une nécessité.
spending a lot of money to
Maintenant,
ensure
quand
their
nous travaillons
budget.
avec les
Now,
autres
when we
partenaires,
work
quand
with
on parle
other
de renforcement
partners,
des
when we
capacités,
speak about
c'est de regarder ce dont
capacity
nous avons
reinforcement,
besoin. Ce ne sont pas des
it
hommes.
is important to see
pays,
what
nos
we
armées
need. We
sont en
are not
mesure de faire le
going
travail
to speak
nécessaire.
about our
Ils
population.
ont
Our
les formations
armies
nécessaires, on a
have
les hommes pour
the
pouvoir faire le
education,
travail.
have the
Ce qui nous manque
training
souvent,
in order
c'est de
to
pouvoir
work, but we
disposer
are lacking
d'équipements.
of the
Par
fact
exemple,
that
pour
we
des
don't
pays comme
have
le nôtre,
equipment.
enclavés, avec des
For
vastes
a
espaces, on a
country
besoin d'un
like
vecteur
ours,
aérien
we need
pour faire
an
ça. On a
aerian
besoin
vector.
d'équipements
We
militaires.
need
Et on se rend
military
compte qu'au cours
equipment,
de ces
and we
dernières
see
années,
that in those last
certaines
years,
puissances occidentales
for
ont pratiquement mis des
certain
embargos de fait sur
Occidental
nos pays qui ne peuvent pas accéder
forces
à
have
ces équipements
made
pour
a
assurer
kind
notre
of
défense.
blocus
C'est pourquoi
on
nous
our
avons dû nous
country,
tourner
and
vers la
that's
Turquie,
why we
vers
should
la
we
Chine,
have to
vers la
turn
Russie, qui
to
nous permettent
Russia, Turkey,
d'acquérir ces
China,
équipements, pas
who
gratuitement.
permit us
Nous les achetons,
to
même
buy
s'il y a
these
souvent certaines
equipments.
facilités.
We really
Mais
buy
c'est ça,
them.
donc quand on parle de
It is
renforcement
not
des
for free,
capacités,
but
c'est
when
ça.
we speak about
C'est de
for
former nos hommes,
capacity
être en
reinforcing, we
position de
want
faire le
to
travail,
train
mais c'est
our
de nous
people
aider
in
aussi
order for
à
them to
acquérir
work
les
better
technologies
and
et
to
les moyens
acquire
militaires qui nous
technologies
permettent
and
d'assurer dans
military
la durée,
means
parce que c'est
through
qu'on
which
avait
we
des
can
problèmes avec la
ensure
mission des
in the
Nations
time,
Unies,
because
les
at the
forces
beginning
françaises,
we
donc on
had
était dans des
French
scénarios de dépendance qui n'ont
forces
jamais mis nos
and we
pays en
had
capacité d'assurer la sécurité. Donc nous
dependency
voulons
forces,
sortir
and our
de cette
country
dépendance pour que
couldn't
nous-mêmes,
assure
nous
security.
puissions assurer
We
la
want to
sécurité de
become
nos pays dans la durée.
independent to assure the security of our countries in time.
Sorry. I like what you've said, but let me just read a report, and I'm sure the three countries know about this report that I'm about to read, that was read by a UN official. And it said that deaths from terrorism in the world rose to 8,352 in 2023. And 2022 deaths from terrorism, let me just repeat that again. Deaths from terrorism in the world rose to 8,352 in 2023. That is a 22% increase from the previous year, and the highest level since 2017. And some of these deaths from terrorism have been reported in the regions where you come from. there are concerns that withdrawal of the three countries from ECOWAS will weaken both regional unity and cooperation in combating insurgency. But at the same time, there was some sort of conviction that your leaders, the leaders of your country, were giving to their people by saying that they will join forces to create a 5,000-strong military unity to fight terrorism in the region. How is this possible? Yet on the figures that I've given, and yet there is a concern that withdrawal of the three will weaken both regional unity and cooperation in combating insurgencies.
I would like to answer to that. First of all, United Nations should not count the fatalities anymore, but what did they do for 10 years in our countries to struggle against terror? Nothing. There were a lot of fights, but it was an inadapted operation. So the role of United Nations is not to count the number of deaths, but to do something. So this is from the point of view of the posture of this organization, which are only counting the death cases. So I would like to ask ECOWAS or to the United Nations, what have you done to fight against these terrorist groups? But I think that some questions are also motivated by other actors who have their own ideas, and to think that nothing has been done in ECOWAS, and has ECOWAS done something to fight against terrorism? What did they do? What did they give to our countries? Our countries, with the investments we have done, we know that the insecurity level has decreased. I would like to discuss this figure with them. In Mali, for instance, I can give you an example. During 10 years, Mali was controlling only 40 or 50% of our territory. Then the state, social services, army have deployed. Terrorism is not finished yet, but from the quality point of view, we see that there is an improvement, and our army is like the army of Niger and Burkina. So we shouldn't only give figures, but we can also say that our leaders came. At the beginning, we are not talking about 5,000 people. 3 military armies are working together, but instead of that, we will have an integrated army for all 3 countries, which is fighting against terrorism. A lot of terrorist leaders have been neutralized, and today we are in an offensive position. So I think that these postures are also motivated by other agendas, geopolitical ones, but we should also ask the population of these countries if we go forward or backwards.
Thank you. So, Niger, given the current dynamics of change in the world and, the regional border, from where you sit, what kind of future awaits the 3 countries of the Sahel region, and also in terms of integration?
Merci.
Thank you. I would like, before coming to this question, maybe speak a little bit more about the question of casualties or fatalities. Who was there to count these cases? If you are aware, there are less assaults against our armies. Now they are attacking civilian. The terrorists know where our army is. They go and attack some poor people, some peasants. And I would like to tell you that from the time that our 3 countries have done something to push the foreign forces to quit our country. We have the initiative of our own actions. In the past, the situation was different. We had to wait for the order of the French army, for instance, in order to intervene. It wasn't only that, we could also interrupt the financing source of these terrorists. Who are these terrorists? These terrorists were financing the terrorists, and the fact of forcing them to leave was something good we have done. So all the financing sources have been abolished. So there are less attacks and against our security, and the internal situation is now regularizing. We don't say that terrorism is finished. We know that it is a very long struggle, but we know that there are progresses, and the essential progresses have been accomplished. Now coming to the future of the region, maybe you have observed that at the beginning we were in the logic of an alliance, and then we immediately became a confederation. Actually, we are talking about the Confederation of Sahel states. So what we want to do now is a kind
projet témoin.
Of testimony project. It will be a testimony project for Africa, which can expand to other African countries, or which can be reproduced in other African regions if they like our integration model. But our project is based on 3 or 4 criteria. First of all, our sovereignty. We don't want to be under the dependency of any country, whichever country it is. And then, for us, dignity, the respect of the dignity is very important, because we were not considered as if we weren't human people. And the third thing is the interest of our populations. We are open to all countries all over the world for cooperation. But the interest of our population and the resources of our countries should also be respected. This wasn't the case up to now. And the last criteria on which is based our cooperation is the fact that our cooperation can be with the countries of the Sahel or with our confederation, as we have in all cases economic convergence criteria on which our cooperation is based. This is what I wanted to say about the future of our integration.
All right. So to Burkina Faso, in this regard, what your counterpart has said, so what are the ways for the alliance of Sahel states be able to amplify its influence in the global politics? Because this is a new confederation that was formed by the 3 Sahel countries, the 3 countries from the Sahel region.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you. With your permission, I would like to come back to this report, which is given data about the facts. I am impressed by the facts, and I hope that the same report declares that in Burkina Faso it wasn't possible to walk in Burkina Faso in 2022, but it was possible in 2023, 2024, and 2025, because 2022 was a time where our country was occupied by 50% by terrorists. At the beginning of 2025, we are now recuperated 71% of our territory. There were a lot of schools which were closed, but in 2023, 1,500 schools have reopened. 2,100,000 people have been displaced in 2022. In 2024, it is less than 900. So I think that this report should mention absolutely what is done. We have closed one of the biggest festivals of the world, which couldn't be organized during 3 years, and which mobilized 50 delegations all over the world, and which examined 235 films. These are very eloquent statistics about the real situation. I am coming from a region where we couldn't go for 3 years. I couldn't go to my own village. But when you are at Ouaga and you have a friend who calls you to tell you that he is in his village, where he couldn't be for 3 years, we understand that this is completely different from what the report declares. So we should work on an objective basis. An assessment isn't made in any room. I don't tell you what I have read, but I am telling you what I have lived. I am living in Burkina, and the tour of Burkina Faso is made on bicycles. We go from one town to another, kilometers and kilometers, and this goes on for weeks. And nothing happened to these people on their bicycles. But in the report, when we see that the whole world is alarmed, when the efforts are not respected, the populations, when they die, there is a problem, but when they support you, it means that there is something positive. So
right.
to come back,
going back,
yes, but
to my question, it's good that you've given your response to my previous question, the United Nations report. But in this regard, let me go back to my question, because we also need to open the floor for the audience. In this regard, what are the ways for the, for the new cooperation, that was formed by the 3 countries? Is that new cooperation able? How will it be able to amplify its influence in the global politics, and also contribute to the international systems through this same confederation?
Oui. Alors, je pense que
I think that the new confederation is now trying to succeed because we want to offer a new perspective to this entity which has been confined and presented as a space which is not interesting. I think that Minister Job has spoken about that. We want to recenter everything on our own capacities. We want to attract investors. In Burkina Faso, we have opened more than 5 factories this year, and if the situation had been so dangerous, nobody would have come. We should try to create a Sahel market animated by the Sahel population. So Burkina, Mali, Niger, and with other countries which are surrounding us, which are at the level of ECOWAS. These 3 countries have very good relations with their neighbors. We have these interdependence relations which should be reinforced, but first of all, we should think about the interests of the situation of Sahelian people. That's why I spoke about extroversion. What we want today is the following. If the goal of Burkina Faso is everywhere, it is because it will have an effect on the children of Burkina Faso. We can't produce such a product and live in the darkness. We should first of all show the population that this work is being done. They are the first beneficiaries before developing a report. So I think that this is the fact which makes the specificity of the Confederation, and it is this vision which is a vision of the three leaders. We want to have sustainable economies.
We're about to bring the session to, before we bring the session to an end, and I call upon my colleague Mehmet to take over the next session, I'd like to open the floor to the audience. In case you have a question, you may direct it to any of the foreign affairs ministers who are here. Okay, we have. Any other question? Okay, suffice. Okay, go ahead.
Excellencies, Ministers, thank you very much. My name is Traore. I am a student for economics in Turkey. Thank you very much for this panel. It's been very interesting. Here's my question. So Sahel states have decided to create a confederation. In terms of economic perspectives, does this confederation have economic industrial projects so that this confederation is a sustainable and a long-term one?
Thank you for that question. Any other question? There's a lady there. Thank you.
Thank you for these presentations. I have a question. According to your perspective, what can Turkey do more in your fight against terrorism in terms of weapon or military technology transfer?
Thank you. Any other question? We are done, if I'm not wrong. Okay. Sorry for that. We'll start with.
Merci beaucoup,
Thank
M.
you
Traoré,
very
pour sa
much.
question. Je pense que les débats sont allés très vite, on n'a pas eu le temps d'élaborer. Vous
we
savez,
were
la Confédération des
quick.
États
We
du
couldn't
Sahel a été
elaborate, but
constituée sur trois
this
piliers essentiels.
confederation was
D'abord, la
founded on three
sécurité.
main
On
pillars.
a parlé de ça, la
Security,
lutte contre le
we
terrorisme, qui est le
mentioned
premier. Le
this,
second,
so fight against
c'est la
terrorism.
coordination diplomatique
Secondly,
pour nous permettre de parler d'une
diplomatic
seule voix
coordination so
sur la
that we
scène
can have a
internationale,
unified
aussi en tant
voice in
qu'entité
international
géopolitique et une
scene
réalité
and in
géopolitique
terms
actuelle.
of
Et le troisième,
geopolitical
c'est justement sur la question de développement.
challenges. And the third pillar is development, economic development and economic cooperation between these three countries, free movement of persons and goods, and of course there are certain integration projects. For instance, the railroad project from Bamako to other countries. We have common energy projects. We want to transform our raw materials in the energy field or in the agricultural field. For instance, we have a project to have a purchase center in order to purchase raw materials for our three countries, and also a common exploitation project for the mineral resources. So yes, the economic development pillar is extremely important for our confederation. The military pillar is not sufficient. We need to provide opportunities to our peoples, and for that we need to have economic projects. And if you have time, we can convey you the documents on those projects. It's also among the projects to create a bank and an investment fund, and we'll try to identify the necessary funds for that, because the investment bank will generate resources to finance our own development so that we don't only depend on the World Bank.
Maintenant, par rapport à La seconde question de la dame.
For the second question
peut
asked
faire
by
d'autre
the
pour nos
lady, what Turkey can do
on a
more
coutume de
in
dire
order
qu'il n'y a
to
pas
help
de
our
sécurité
countries.
sans développement. La
Of course,
Turquie est
there
un
is no
partenaire
security without
essentiel
development.
dans la lutte
Turkey
contre le
has
terrorisme
been
au Sahel.
an extremely
Nous
important
apprécions
partner in our fight
leur
against
contribution
terrorism in the Sahel
et
region.
nous
We do
attendons aussi à ce
appreciate
que la
this
Turquie
country's
soit elle l'est,
contribution,
mais
and
qu'elle le soit davantage notre partenaire
we also
pour la
want
mise en œuvre de tous les
Turkey
projets que
to
le
be a
ministre Diop
partner
vient d'énumérer.
in terms of all the projects that
Nous
my
disons à la
colleague
Turquie
has just
ce
mentioned.
qu'elle a fait pour nous du point de
And
vue bilatéral,
Turkey,
elle est
of
là,
course,
chacun de nos
did
pays a son
many
bilan
things
de
for our
coopération. Dans tous les
countries
cas, on a vu comment la
bilaterally
coopération
with
turque s'est
each of
développée ces
these three
dernières années
countries,
et
and we
son
have an
expansion,
economic
comment la Turquie est en
cooperation
train
that
de
developed a
gagner
lot during these last years.
de prendre de la
And,
proportion de l'EPSO dans
this
sa
getting
coopération avec
very
l'Afrique.
important, and Turkey and
Avec
Africa are getting
les États du
closer,
Sahel,
of course,
nous
and
avons de
with
la
the Sahel
prospérité.
states,
Et
we
nous
have
ne sommes pas
those
dans la posture où
prosperity
c'est toujours
goals,
la Turquie qui doit faire
and
quelque chose pour nous.
we're not
Nous
expecting
disons aussi à la
only
Turquie
Turkey
que
to
nous avons
do
quelque chose à
certain
offrir.
things
Nous avons de la
for us,
prospérité
because we
et
also
qu'elle
have
vienne
certain
pour qu'on
things to
partage cette
offer. We also
prospérité.
have a prosperity to share with Turkey.
Ce que je vais ajouter, c'est vraiment de vous rassurer.
Maybe I can add
nous ne sommes pas
this.
seulement
I
dans
would
le
like
domaine
to
militaire
reassure
avec
you,
la Turquie.
Madam,
Il y
we
a
are not
tout,
only
tout
cooperating
le
in
volet
the military
développement
sense in
qui est en
Turkey.
cours
We
de
also
déploiement.
have a very important
Et ce que je veux
development
souligner ici,
pillar
c'est que
with Turkey in our
on a
cooperation.
tendance à présenter ces trois
And
pays comme
there's
s'ils
a
sont dans une
tendency
approche
to
purement
present
militaire,
these three countries
Parce
as
qu'on
if they
oublie
were only
de
focusing
montrer
on
les
the
efforts qui sont
military
faits dans le domaine du développement.
field, but there are a
Pendant
lot
qu'il y a
that
un
is being
travail
done
qui se
in
fait
terms
sur
of
le terrain de lutte
development.
contre le
Of course,
terrorisme,
we are
il y a un
fighting
gros
against
travail qui se
terrorism.
fait dans le domaine du
There's,
développement et dans le domaine
this is
social, et
very
cela, c'est dans tous les
important,
trois
but
pays.
we are also
Je pense
trying
que
to do
à ce
a
niveau,
lot
la
in terms of
coopération au développement,
socio-economic
c'est davantage
development.
renforcée.
And
Quand vous
our
allez au
cooperation
Mali, au
needs to be
Burkina, au Niger,
reinforced
ces
in
trois
Mali, in
dernières
Niger, in
années,
Burkina
pour
Faso.
des pays
Those
qui font
three
face à
last
l'insécurité,
years,
je
for
dirais que ça relève d'une prouesse.
countries
Regardez la
who are
croissance
facing
économique de ces trois
insecurity,
pays,
I think what you
c'est
can
presque
observe
similaire,
the last 3
sinon
years
souvent
is
plus
extremely
que celle des
impressive.
pays qui sont en
And
paix. Pourtant,
what
ces
we
trois
are
pays
now
doivent consacrer
witnessing
25% de leur
can be
budget pour
compared
s'occuper. Mais en
to
plus de ça, ils
very
se battent pour offrir des
developed
forages, des
countries
écoles, de
because
la
we are
nourriture,
offering
des
lots of
intrants à leur
opportunities.
population.
We
Donc, il y a un
have
travail qui se fait déjà à ce
resources
niveau
to
et qui mérite
offer to our
d'être
populations,
renforcé.
and I think we need to reinforce our economic cooperation.
Thank you. Any other question? None at all. I'll direct this question to Mali. Don't you think Mali will struggle outside the bloc, ECOWAS? Because your economy, not totally, but somehow, depends on West African neighbors.
Merci pour la question.
Thank you for this
Nous n'allons pas
question.
lutter.
We are not going
Nos
to
pays
fight.
sont des pays
Our
interdépendants sur
countries
le plan
are
économique. Ce n'est pas à
interdependent
dire
countries
que
in
le Burkina
terms
ou
of
le Mali dépendent
economic
des autres pays
independence.
côtiers. Nous
Of
avons des
course,
productions comme
we
le
have
bétail et d'autres
productions
produits
like
aussi
wheat
que nous
production
exportons,
or livestock
dont ces pays ont
production.
besoin. Nous sommes aussi
We
des marchés.
are
Beaucoup
also
de biens
markets
industriels qui
for
sont
one
produits
another.
en Côte
Industrial
d'Ivoire ou au
products,
Sénégal
for instance,
le sont à cause
produced
de
in
nos
Senegal
marchés.
or
Les
Ivory
ports
Coast
d'Abidjan, les
are
ports de
sold
Dakar marchent parce
in
que
our
les Maliens
countries. The
veulent bien
ports
importer
in
leurs biens. Donc il y a
Abidjan
une
or in Dakar
interdépendance économique.
do
Maintenant, nous,
function
sur le plan
because we also
institutionnel, nous
buy
avons
these
décidé
products. But
de
from an
quitter la
institutional
CEDEAO, qui est une
point of view, we
organisation, parce que
decided
cette
to leave
organisation ne répond plus
ECOWAS
à nos
because
attentes et
this
pour nous,
organization
n'évolue plus
doesn't
pour
live up
satisfaire
to
un
our
idéal.
expectations
Mais nous
and it
restons,
doesn't represent an ideal
dans
for
le
us
cadre
anymore.
de
But
pouvoir
we, of
promouvoir
course,
les liens
remain
économiques qui ont
in a
toujours existé
framework
entre nos pays bien
that
avant la
will
création de
allow
la CEDEAO,
to
parce que
continue
quand nos pays sont allés à
to
l'indépendance en
promote
1960,
those
de
economic
1960
relations
jusqu'aux
from
années 70, création
1960
de la CEDEAO,
till the
ben, on faisait des commerces, on était
1990s, where
liés. Donc
ECOWAS
cette
was
réalité
established,
économique est là.
we
Nos pays sont
put in
disposés à
place
pouvoir travailler
economic
vers le
ties,
Ghana, le
and
Togo,
these
d'autres pays
ties
viennent
are
à nous
still
pour
there.
dire qu'ils souhaitent
Togo or
qu'on
Ghana
maintienne
are still
ces
buying from
relations
us,
économiques.
and
Donc
we
notre
are
sortie nous
maintaining
permettra de
these
faire face à une
economic
question
ties.
existentielle parce
And
que nous ne
of course,
pouvons
we
pas
will
appartenir à des
try to
organisations qui
tackle
sont
this
manipulées par des
existential
puissances extérieures
question because
qui
we do
viennent
not want to
pour pouvoir
depend
nous
on
attaquer
external
avec la
actors
complicité de pays
that are
voisins.
trying to attack
Maintenant,
us with the
nous
complicity diversity of neighboring countries. We have a solidarity between Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, and this is a force because this is 45% of the territory represented in ECOWAS, and we're not, we do have very rich resources in terms of strategic minerals, lithium, uranium, also water, and we need to exploit these resources in the framework of a solidarity link. But economically, we will continue to work with neighboring countries. So this interdependence will continue, but we won't depend on others. We will depend on one another.
Thank you for that. I'll just ask my last question, and I'll expect a response from Niger and Burkina Faso. If possible, if you can respond in 2 minutes each, before then the floor respondent can take over as we wind up. We are talking about integration. These 3 countries, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger. There is a sanction that has been put against these 3 countries by the African Union, the continent's bloc. How will the 3 countries integrate with other countries that are member states to a union that has already imposed sanctions on the 3 countries? It looks like you want to give a response also? In a minute, then we'll have
Je peux répondre rapidement. Pour nous, la politique des sanctions en soi est une grosse erreur. Nous le voyons en Russie ou ailleurs, ces sanctions sont toujours contre-productives. Mais nous respectons aussi les textes des organisations. Nous savons que l'Union africaine, par exemple, quand il y a des changements anticonstitutionnels, les pays sont suspendus. Mais ce que nous avons indiqué à ces pays, c'est que la suspension n'est pas l'ostracisme, ce n'est pas l'exclusion. Même quand il y a des mesures de suspension, il faut rester un engagement constructif avec le pays. Nous avons dit sur 3 questions. Aujourd'hui, s'il y a des questions de sécurité qui sont discutées en Afrique, ça ne peut pas se discuter à l'absence de nos 3 pays. S'il y a des questions humanitaires, des grandes pandémies qui existent dans nos pays, personne ne regarde si c'est un régime élu ou contraint en transition. Donc nous avons aussi indiqué que chaque fois qu'on a un adage de nos pays qui dit au Mali et dans notre région, on ne peut pas raser la tête de quelqu'un en son absence. Chaque fois qu'on discute des questions qui touchent à nos pays, il faut quand même nous appeler, nous écouter et continuer la discussion. Donc, ce n'est pas la sanction qui est en question, il faut un engagement constructif pour pouvoir sortir de cette situation et maintenir notre solidarité et notre coopération sur le long terme. C'est ce qui manque souvent à nos organisations.
This is what we lack in international organizations.
Thank you for that.
Merci. Qu'est-ce que je veux compléter après ce que Diop a dit?
Thank you. What would I like to complete after Job? The suspension shouldn't be integral. We saw the effects of the embargo. It wasn't productive at all. So security is a global legacy. The struggle against diseases or pandemics are a global fight, and as Minister Job said, we should work all together and we should all be consulted. So although there was a suspension, we observed that at the level of the African Union, our representatives are approached to assess the situation and to see what are the perspectives, because in all cases, it is an organization which belongs to all of us, and these countries are aware that the best thing to do is to get again back the big family, and we are in this posture, and we don't have any problem with other countries. We have different perceptions. Even ECOWAS, we are not in conflict with ECOWAS. Some countries thought that ECOWAS was good. We thought it wasn't so good. So the African Union also we are in very good disposals, and we want to discuss because what made us stay behind is that we were a little bit slow. But with what has happened now in Mali, in our country, and in Burkina Faso, we have the best conditions, and very soon we will be able to sit, to speak, to find solutions. We are the African family, and we want to find a solution. When a member of the family is wrong, we call him and we try to explain the situation. So what I can say is that the sanctions can affect our presence in some instances, but are not affecting our friendship with other countries. And integration can always start from Sahel states to consolidate. But the African Union is losing in not associating concerned countries in the discussion. These are the good questions which should be asked, and the results are the report we have spoken about. Because if you want to struggle against something, you can't shave somebody when he is not there with you. So the error we are still doing is to think that the problem comes from an anti-constitutional field. We are looking for the causes elsewhere. We were in a very difficult situation, and our relations in the ECOWAS, we tried a lot of things to exchange and to understand the situation together, but we saw that they could even take arms to attack a member. So we understood that our perceptions about solidarity are completely different. So I mean that these sanctions are delaying the comprehension circle, but they won't affect anymore our relations at a bilateral level with countries which understand. And today, look at the populations. Populations don't know what happens in Addis Ababa, but they are following what is happening in the Confederation. Why? Because they find themselves in this confederation, and this is what they want, and this is what the leaders should also consider. They should not be far from the population in order to integrate their needs in the public policy.
Right, gentlemen, thank you. Let me bring in my colleague, Mehmet Kosse, the President, Africa Foundation. Is he around? Oh, I can see him. Kindly help me with the mic. Sorry, I had not seen you. Kindly help him with the mic.
To overcome the challenges inherited from the colonial period. What I see now, with your initiative, building kind of Liptago-Gorma perspectives on decolonizing efforts from neo-colonialism. I don't know if it's wrong description of the perspective that you are trying to do. But with internal and external challenges you have before you, how are you going to overcome these challenges will show us the success, it will lead us to your the objectives to be implemented. What's the difference, I guess, from what you had with the ECOWAS or other regional economic communities, which is starting as economic blocks, but now you are starting with the security blocks, but expanded into economic and other issues to be solved within that alliances. But the main challenges, as I understand, as the landlocked alliances, security, yes, with your own capacity, but how are you going to overcome the issues of the economic integration, not only within the region, 3 countries, but also throughout the continent, as well as throughout the global economic system. Building a capacity, improving services, improving state institutions, providing welfare to the people and the security is one issue, but at the same time, integrating and aligning common issues into a confederation is another issue. There have been a couple of confederation experiences in the last century. Hope this one will succeed, and if this model, Liptako-Gorma perspective succeed, that will be another independence or the decolonization movement or the perspective of the African continent. Thank you for your perspectives.
Thank you, the President of Africa Foundation, Mehmet Kose. Gentlemen, thank you for your time and for responding to the pertinent questions and concerns that people have concerning the 3 African countries within the Sahel region, and we wish you all the best. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. My name is Brenda Zedaradudu from TRT World. Thank you for your time. Have a lovely evening.